So how is it that I, as a 23-year-old, was able to go from 0 to 15 million euros in total revenue within 2.5 years? In this video, it is my sole goal to go through all of the history of how I made it happen. When did I find my first product? How did I find it? What did I do to scale my brand? And I'll go in and show all of the Shopify numbers, my different ads, open up some very private folders for you, to be honest, but that's just to give you the very best in-depth overview of what happened to me in the past 2.5 years. How did all of this madness really happen? So I think let's just get straight into it. This is also very funny to me to sit down and record because, well, I launched these brands 2.5 years ago, and in the past month, I've actually managed to sell both of them for a multiple million euros, which is incredible. But really to sit here now and do this breakdown, it feels like the perfect full circle. Yeah, and I hope it can definitely inspire some of you guys, because this was all funded with around 200-300 euros. So yeah, most of you people have probably got that. So yeah, there is really no reason not to do this. All right, so my very first brand, profitable brand actually, I should say, was launched in August 2021. I had run a couple of ecom brands before. Well, they were doing some alright numbers, but they weren't that profitable, and I wasn't making a good living from them. They were almost just going break even, meaning that I wasn't making any money on them actually. But in August 2021, I came across weighted blankets. I was scrolling on Twitter, and I love finding products that way. And suddenly I heard a story of an American company doing incredible numbers with weighted blankets. And so I asked my mom, what is this all about? What is weighted blankets? And to give you some context, my mom works in the government, and therefore she has a lot of knowledge, at least this is the way it works in Denmark, because the government has to supply certain products for certain citizens with certain diseases like autism and ADHD and that kind of sensory disorders. So she already knew a bit about weighted blanket, and she just told me that, well, they are doing an incredible job. It's a miracle product, and yeah, they're just very good. And so that was really interesting to me, because I had personally never heard of it. My mom had, and she vouched for them. So I went online, did some research. I just typed into Google weighted blanket studies, and to my surprise, there were a bunch of studies, like plus 100 studies on weighted blankets, and nearly all of them concluded that weighted blankets helped with sleep, relaxing, and sleep quality, and minimizing stress and anxiety by increasing dopamine levels in the brain. And so that was very interesting to me. Suddenly I had proof of a product that was good, it was helping people, and I saw somebody else doing well with it. So I thought, okay, what's the situation in Denmark, in Scandinavia? So I did a Google search, and I found one Danish company selling them back in August 2021. They were doing all right. I did a bunch of research, found out that the founder of that company, they did around 500,000 Danish kroner in revenue each month, which is good. It's not incredible, but also their setup wasn't incredible. So when I did that analysis, I thought to myself, okay, these guys, they can do, I know this company in the US, they are doing incredible numbers. I've also got this company in Denmark. They are doing okay numbers, not that great, but also they aren't doing that great of a job with their e-com store, with the advertising, with the customer service. I could check on their Trustpilot. And so I thought to myself, well, this is interesting. Let me see if I can beat these guys in Denmark by kind of taking some inspiration as to what the American company did. Very quickly after I found the American company, I also found an Australian company doing extremely well with weighted blankets. So suddenly I had two large established companies to kind of take inspiration from and follow, and that's what I did. So I launched in August 2021, and as you can see, we actually the very first month did almost 30,000 Danish kroner in revenue. Now €1 is equivalent to around 7.5 Danish kroner. So feel free to do the calculations here for you. I'll also do some of them along the way. With that said, this is around like 3,000 euros in the very first month for this brand, and I probably only spent around $300 on advertising. So this was very profitable for me, and I think perhaps one of the most interesting learnings for you guys here is that you should just launch with the most basic and lean setup. That's also what I did, and that's what I've done time and time again. Because really my entire hypothesis here is that if you can make a brand work with a bad setup, with a simple setup, how will it then perform when you improve on that setup? Imagine that. So if you're able to make it work with not the best site, not the best ads, what will the performance look like when everything is optimized to 10 out of 10? And that's really when I knew I was onto something here, because, well, we did make it happen with a very basic setup. And so let me now actually show you the setup we had back at the time, because I think this is really interesting to you guys, because the truth is that I just took a bunch of content online from all around, and I downloaded it, did a voiceover over it, and then we ran it as ads for a brief period to test and validate the product. So let's go in here. You can see these are some of our first ever ads. This is actually, I've just found this video of a weighted blanket very random on YouTube, and I downloaded it, edited it, and then did a voiceover over it. Of course, this is in Danish since we launched in Denmark, but nevertheless, this really goes to show how basic you can launch in ecom and then invest more into it and slowly build that brand.
Hvis vi vender den her, så kan I se de syninger, hvor en ekstra dæk ligger i, og det er det, der er med til at mindske stress og forbedre søvnkvalitet.
I feel like my voice is a kid here, but nevertheless, this is what we launched with. This is also one of the ads. Very ugly, to be honest with you. It just says save 20%. And we had some more of these, totally basic ads. And I just think it's a very good learning for you guys, because you don't have to launch with the most optimized setup. While we prefer a more optimized setup, it isn't necessary for you to launch it. These are the first product images I had. I just got these from my supplier. And you can see, well, I just tried to make it happen with what was in front of me. Really just trying to work with what I got. And it just worked. So as you can see, in September, we did almost 200,000 Danish kroner. That's also around, I think that's around 30,000 euros. This is actually more around 40,000 euros. 4,000, I'm sorry, doing the calculations here in my head. So in October, I actually did the decision to pause the ads because I could not keep up. This momentum and this interest and the supply was limited yet because our warehouse wasn't built up. So I paused the ads here for a moment to kind of collect myself and get some inventory on the way to our warehouse. But we still did 140,000 kroner, just around 20,000 euros in 1 month. But we just kept scaling. Then 322,000 kroner, 445,000 kroner, 611,000 kroner. That's just around 80,000 euros in, I think this is month 5 of the brand's history. And then 412,000 Danish kroner, 620, 735,000 Danish kroner. That's 100,000 euros in 1 month, which is, it was incredible numbers at the time. It still is. Of course, I'm now doing substantially larger numbers. But it was so interesting to me. And I really just think the fact that we could launch with such basic content goes to show, and it really taught me the lesson that you should always prioritize testing the product and the markets over the content, at least initially. Once you found that product market fit, then it's time to reinvest everything into ads and optimizing the store and content. But initially, you need to focus on, just the basics. Is there even a demand for this product in my market? March 2022, this was actually when I had found some great success with this brand, so I decided, what the hell, let me just, for the sake of it, open up another one. And that's because at the time I actually had plenty of time on my hands, because when you're launching a new ecom brand in the beginning, you've actually got some spare time, because after all you're doing is, you're doing the customer service, you're optimizing the store and the ads. But in the beginning, when the brand isn't that large, I just had some spare time on my hands. So I thought, okay, I was just so hungry. Let's make some even crazier numbers. So I decided to launch FindSmile. As you can see, March 2022. If you want to see the site as well, we've got it here. Basically an electric toothbrush. Also, you can see Scandinavian Rest here. These are the Danish sites. These are our largest ones. Both brands today, they are very much aware and available internationally. But we are still largest in Denmark. So I thought, let's launch a new brand. And as you can see, this is where I started to know what I was doing. March 2022, first month of this brand, 52,000 Danish kroner. The month afterwards, 166,000 Danish kroner, 202, 342, 704,000 Danish kroner, and like month 5 or 6, which is just shy of 100,000 euros. Imagine that. And so once again, I think it's just very interesting for you to see, what did we launch with? What was the setup? How could we create these results with, such a basic setup? Keep in mind that I probably invested around, 200 euros into launching FindSmile as well. So it wasn't like, even though I had made money from Scandinavian Rest, I didn't increase the investment into launching new brands, because I just knew we can do it so lean, and that's what I love about e-commerce and our framework. But let me show what we launched with, because basically this is so fun. But throughout the entire history of FindSmile, this is perhaps one of the best ads, and it has done, I think, collectively plus 1.5 million euros in revenue for us, this one single ad. And this is one that we launched with. So I got the toothbrush home, and I didn't even think of anything. I just started filming, and then I myself edited all of this together. But also, as you can see, the ad is very basic. It's in Danish though, but down here at the bottom, I'm basically just pointing out some features. So let me play it for you now. So it just says, say hello to Denmark's smallest toothbrush, developed by dentists and designers for a professional teeth experience. And then, so I'm just showing the product, very, very basic. But this performed so well for us. So we continued scaling and scaling and scaling. And in June actually, you can see it also on Scandinavian Rest, in June, I had a very difficult time, because my parents had planned a trip for the summer that year, which was to go to the US for, I think, a couple of months was the total trip, with all of the trips I also had planned before and after. And on one hand, I love spending time with my family. That's what I love the most. But also during this period, I just knew I had to make the most of it. I just had to. And so I was very actually depressed that I needed to go, because things were performing and I knew this was my time to shine. So what I did during this period, because I knew I wouldn't be able to work those like 16-hour days when I was in the US with my family. So I made a total list of all the different tasks I did on a daily basis for both brands, just to be aware of them. And then I slowly started sorting them out like by impact. So what task am I doing that has the highest impact and return on investment for the business? And so I made a list of all the tasks and ranked it. And at the time I found out that my two most important tasks was, well, launching and testing new ad creatives and managing the ad account. Actually very simple. So basically doing all of the media buying, which I was doing myself at the time also. I was doing everything back then. So I told myself, okay, let's see what happens if we've got a couple of months where this is all I'm focusing on. And so you can see in May we did a 746,000 kroner in revenue. In June, which was the month that I was leaving, we did 1.2 million kroner. This is a 2x. This is almost doubling our revenue. Keep in mind, this also happened for FineSmile almost. This is a 1.5x of the revenue in 1 month, right? And so from June till July, from 1.2 to almost 2 million. Once again doubling the revenue, because all I did was reinvesting into content. And the history for FineSmile is the same, 342,000 to 700,000. This is a 2x, more than a 2x. Imagine that. And I was working less here than ever before. So this was a huge lesson for me. How is it that suddenly we can scale this rapidly? Also, of course, a bit of this can be attributed to the timing of the products, but we were just doing a great job back then. And so you can see from July to August, scaled even further. But what's crazy is we did it in such a unique way for Scandinavian Rest. As you can see, 1.9 here, almost 2 million, and then boom, 3 million. So we added another million Danish kroner on top of the revenue for Scandinavian Rest within 1 single month. 3 million kroner a month, that's around, I think, 400,000 euros, I believe, somewhere around that area. So we kept scaling, prepared ourselves for Q4, which happened here in October. Of course, November, biggest time of the year, we did a whooping almost 5 million kroner in revenue for this brand, which is incredible. And for FineSmile, we did almost 2 million Danish kroner. So imagine, this is me 1.5 years into the journey, and we did 2 + 5 because I also had a couple of other brands. I think that year we did around 8 million kroner in 1 single month with all of the brands. Because at this time, I had also launched Scandinavian Rest in Sweden, Germany, the same with FineSmile, and they were doing incredible numbers as well. Very much a similar growth. So we did plus €1 million within 1.5 years of launching my first ever profitable brand in 1 month, which is, it's incredible. Doing, I think it's 1.3 million euros in 1 single month, 1.5 years after we launched. I can't even imagine it myself. But with all of that said, we just continued scaling, and I think what has been the largest contributing factor is that we just tested relentlessly, combining that, of course, with a great product market fit, which, that's just so crucial. Also, I think for some of you, it might be really interesting to see the breakdown of our ad accounts. If you want that within my mentorship program, I've actually done a similar video to this, just where I go into even more detail. I show the start of the brand, the ad account, how we scale the ad account, and a bit more of the back end of this process to really give some more value. That's reserved for all of our Scaling with Ecom members. With that said, if you're interested to work a bit more closely with me or just to see the breakdown, then you can apply. There's a link in the bio for Scaling with Ecom perhaps you might be a fit. But yeah, I think now since we've taken a look at the numbers here, and you can see Scandinavian Rest has done way above 55 million Danish kroner, like considering all stores, way above 60 million Danish kroner actually, which is around, I think, 8 million euros. Fine Smile has done way over 25 million Danish kroner, which is plus 3 million euros. And these are some of my oldest brands, but then to sell them last month, it was just, yeah, a very unique experience, of course. Also suddenly getting that payout for the first time in my life. This is what I've really worked for my entire life. So right now I'm extremely grateful. With that said, I'm also hungrier than ever. But what I'm hungrier than ever now to prove is that, well, I have built literally, in my opinion, the perfect framework for launching, scaling, and eventually selling your brand. After all, you've just seen me do it with 2 of my brands, and this is a complete and honest breakdown. I believe I've built the perfect formula, just being honest with you. And my largest goal for 2024 is to prove that that formula is like, it can be compared to nothing else. And that's what Scaling with Ecom is all about. In there, you get a complete breakdown of my formula. A complete breakdown of how I now find products, how I launch. I sit with you on a one-on-one basis, weekly Q&A calls, and go into depth with all of this information for you. This is not a plug by any means, of course it is in some way, but I just want to emphasize that this is now my goal, to help prove that I've built the best formula in the ecom business. And I know I have. So that's also why our students see so great results. With that said, I think I want to end on kind of discussing, well, what did all of this make me feel? Because on the one hand, this has made me able to live my dream life, honestly. I'm sitting here in my new apartment in Dubai. I feel so fortunate. I'm out eating at the best restaurants in the world. Looking for new cars to buy, and that's extremely fun. But with that said, and this is so shitty to hear once you haven't found that success yet, but inside I feel exactly the same to what I did before. I perhaps feel a bit more confident now because I know that I'm capable of doing this stuff, but honestly it hasn't changed that much of my personal feelings. And I think that's a very important takeaway. The most happy I've been in my life was when I was in 9th grade by far, and then now. But in 9th grade I had nothing compared to like finances. Today I have a lot, but that just goes to show that there isn't a correlation there. With that said, of course, I wouldn't sit here and neglect that this doesn't make life easier, but I just think it's a very important point. With that said, I sincerely hope that this video was able to inspire some of you guys. Please let me know if you want a further breakdown of some of these areas. As mentioned, all I want to do is to push forward this formula that I've created and help as many of you guys to succeed as well. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and let me know what you want to see more of.